Hi, I'm Nick. Today we're going to be mounting this shift knob onto a Fiat 500 Sport. So the first thing we need to do is remove the stock shift knob. This black cap on the top needs to come off. It's just held on with adhesive. So I'm going to use a razor blade to pry this up. With that black cap removed, you can see that there's a 10mm bolt that holds the shift knob to the shift lever. Now I'm actually going to remove the shift boot so that I can remove the reverse lockout. Remove the spring from the reverse lockout mechanism. The boot is held to the reverse lockout mechanism with a zip tie, so we're going to have to cut that. Now clean the grease off of the shift lever. So unfortunately, most aftermarket shift knobs thread onto an external thread, whereas the Fiat 500 shift lever has an internal thread, which, remember, that's what keeps the shift knob on. So what we're going to have to do is cut an external thread onto this shaft. Now this is a 10mm diameter shaft, and my shift knob has a 10mm by 1.25 thread pitch, and I have the appropriate die here. I do not have a die wrench, which is why I'm using an open-end wrench. Obviously a die wrench would be better, but I'm just going to get it started like that. Now I'm going to add a little bit of cutting oil. And carry on. So now I've cut an external M10 by 1.25 thread on the top of the shaft, and I threaded until I reached this little spring retention nub. It's the little spot that holds the spring for the reverse lockout. So now let's do a test fit. I'm going to add some Loctite once we put this on for good so that it doesn't rotate like this. So let's put the shift boot back on. Get your zip tie ready. So the way the clips go is there's this bottom clip here, a bottom clip here, and then a couple tabs around the top. So this is the orientation that the boot needs to go on. So I'm going to put the zip tie on there, slip that over, and then put the zip tie around the end of the shift boot like that. You just need about a 1/4 inch sticking out the bottom there, and then tighten it. Clip the excess. Put the boot back on. Now you can put some Loctite in here and then thread your shift knob on. However, look at how high this is. That's a little bit ridiculous. I'm going to cut about 2 inches off of this. So this time you may notice that I threaded it a little bit further down, and the purpose of that is to put a locking nut on first. Now the shift knob. Now I can use the nut to back the shift knob up against so that I can set the angle that I want it to be at. Like that. Now it's time to put the boot back on. Now since you remove the reverse lockout, obviously now you can shift into reverse without using a reverse lockout, but also it makes finding fifth a little bit harder, because if you go too far to the right, you can't push up into fifth. But if you just rely on muscle memory, it's pretty easy to get into fifth. That's how you install an aftermarket shift knob onto a Fiat 500. There's 2 methods there. You can either go with the stock shift height and just cut an external thread on the shift lever. That way you could bring it back to stock. Or you can do what I did and chop about 1.5 to 2 inches off.